3, 2, 1.
So welcome to your life, my friend.
Welcome to our life.
Yes. Yes.
Or does it stop being
Okay,
your
see,
life for a moment? Like,
okay.
like you step into
Yeah,
the role of coach and like life stops and
totally. Absolutely. Your life, the place, your book, the guest, and the host. That makes it, thus, we have to have these kind of conversations to deal with it.
Hi.
Hmm.
What does it feel to be alive?
Hmm.
Today is one of those days where I don't know if I just made a category out of it, but where I kind of wish to tell the audience, just move along. There's nothing to see here.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I just uh, let's say that I'm frustrated by my own by the length of the process of life.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean more specifically, how long it it takes to take these big decisions, and so in a way, there is this it's so weird. There is this whole d- ambivalence of the performance, right? Like, so that there is this, this kind of more like adolescent level social media like Facebook and Instagram. They tempt one to just show the highlights, the bright side of life. um and here it's more like, like it's not the whole thing, but
Yeah.
I guess it's the more boring side of life. I don't know. It's
Right.
like, this is what you signed up for. If you,
Yeah.
10 hours sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, anyway, I don't know. It's like, it's interesting how, in the end, the answer is the obvious one. It's like, just go through the process, and wherever it leads, it leads. There is no, at least the frame is set in such a way that anything else would not make sense. Like. uh, even if there is some temptation to fake it and to make my life more entertaining, that's not what it is
Yeah.
about. And that sounds like a good choice to actually make it about you know, the coaching,
Yeah.
not, like this great adventure. It's coaching. So, I have permission to, to be slow and uninteresting.
Right. So is it fair to say you feel like where you're at right now is you feel some shame or some embarrassment?
Yeah. I mean, just before we started the coaching, I was sensing, like there is a double freeze in me going on. So one is the freeze of, these big decisions that we've been talking about, of like, in a sense, like there is a bit of a temptation to just let it be and, let life go and not make any big decision.
Yeah.
And then the second layer freeze is that, yeah, we are doing this in public, and then, so, like, additional to
Right.
that, like, people seeing me, and
Yeah.
so this is what I was processing.
Yeah.
No, there was even like the possibility, and to a degree a temptation, to kind of shift topic a bit, because we've been talking now a lot about this decision, regarding my life in particular, which is more long term. uh, where should we live? What is the best basis for more projects on top of that? But there are some things that I can do that are more short term, that are more in the virtual, web engineering, web development projects, and that also fit. So that could become, that could be another direction in which this could go, and maybe a bit less painful one.
What is it? What is it that we could, like, what could be seen over here that if we listen to like the sense of embarrassment or the sense of, which on some level I think is that this is probably you're experiencing one of the reasons you wanted to do this like this, right?
Mm.
Is precisely in those moments when you wouldn't want to do it, right? Like is showing up even when you'd rather go to sleep, right? Showing up for something, right?
Hmm.
And it sounds like this morning it's particularly difficult.
Hmm.
But what is it? What is it that we can? What is it that you're afraid that we're seeing or could see that would be embarrassing or?
I think there have been a couple of moments kind of self-awareness happening, I think in the last two sessions, where as we're talking and going back and forth, I kind of realize how much time I'm spending in this space of doubting, of going back and forth, and
Yeah.
like this, how hard it is to really, like, for me to make a choice, like to either say yes, this is the thing, and we're just going to do it regardless of the downsides, or like taking those into account but saying, yeah, we make a sacrifice, or the opposite, to really say, look, there are some reasons why this won't work, and so I should just like just to take the decision. So this, I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know if I've reached that point, or what would lead me to that. But this is a bit, the thing where I'm realizing, oh my god, I have an imaginary audience member saying, come on, make a choice already, like something like
Right.
that.
Right.
That's
Right.
embarrassing.
Totally. Totally. Hmm. And having just spelled that out. Now, what are you sitting with? Hmm.
Yeah, and there is also, it's a tricky game that we are playing. Like it has, I don't say it is impossible, but it has all sorts of uh complexity to it, because like there might be aspects to
Mhm.
that might be needed to go into, which are personal, like especially when it comes to these big life decisions,
Yeah.
personal or related to other family members, and all of that.
Yeah.
And some of it I've been mentioning, and but it's, the question, like, if there is some kind of inner insight that is needed,
Mm.
how much can be achieved in this strange dance
Yeah.
of keeping it,
Yeah.
safe, or at least presentable.
You
But
mean
yeah,
okay? Got you. In other words, the kind of respecting other people's privacy and like that kind
yeah,
of
those
thing,
things
like
exactly.
talking. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So there are more
Mm-hmm.
disembodied projects that one can talk about. That
Mm-hmm.
like there is a free flow that is possible, right? You don't have to kind of.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, actually. The first interview I heard with you
Mhm.
was when you was Peter Lindbergh interviewing you on his podcast, and there was a moment where, um, it was about to become personal somehow, and you kind of, it was nice the way you reacted, right? Just I think you said like you feel a desire to respect that, like, and
Mhm. Yeah.
and it didn't break the flow, and it went on, and so that for me was kind of like, wait, all these things,
Hmm.
there is the possibility for things like that feel
Yeah.
very intimate, that probably are, at the level of the process that's going on, but still,
Yeah.
the level of explicitness is moderated, it's modulated, and
Right.
I
Right.
think that had a quite an impact on me,
Huh.
like it shifted the way I relate to the whole scene, because it's like, wait, it's possible to do, profound things while keeping
Yeah.
the propositional level kind of in check, if you will.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Totally. Right. It's just intense. Well, first of all, I think it's just intense, just in a certain sense, like you're taking responsibility for your life, right? Like you're attempting to make like a choice about, like, on so many different levels, like this choice that you're making, right? It's like you're talking about a direction of your life, but as you can tell, it's like you can see why there'd be resistance about making this, right? Because it's like it's not easy to do, right? It takes something to do that, right? It's like it takes some courage. So I just want to just highlight and I want to invite us to kind of just take a step back and kind of look at, like, your the moment that you made you like the moment that you decided, all right, like, we're gonna make a choice here. Like the moment you say, I want to go over here, right, is the moment, right? Everything that's in the way of that shows itself,
Mm.
right?
Mhm, mhm,
And so it's like the more that you let yourself want and like actually really really address the deeper desires and yearnings and things that you care about, if you really really listen to them, right, literally the more problems that you like literally invite into your life, right, and those problems are a function of you actually kind of taking on your life.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Like it's actually happening right now. It's what, 5 in the morning where you're at, right? You're like, we're doing this. You're doing this publicly, and all the different things that that means, right?
Mhm.
You're not feeling particularly. You had some morning that you're not feeling particularly good about yourself, right? There's some criticisms and impatience and the different things that come up, right? And if you look at, well, why are you doing all that, right?
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, what do you see? I see, like, for me, I have a lot of respect for that. I feel respectful of it.
Mhm. the way I'm experiencing obstacles is a bit different. I don't know. Maybe it can be like folded back into the frame, but the way I experience it is more like contradictory desires, or let's say that the more I let myself want,
Mm.
mm, the more I see different desires pulling in different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And maybe one could interpret this as obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's more like Jordan Peterson's sacrifices that one has to take, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that the thing that's a bit below the surface right now, like just uh, is actually my son's education, my son's like, because the choice that we haven't mentioned
Mm-hmm.
till
Yeah.
now is the choice of whether to go back to the Italian speaking side of Switzerland, back to my
Mm-hmm.
family, to live in
Right.
community. And the thing is, that has an impact also on
Mm-hmm.
what environment my son would be growing up in. And one of
Yeah.
those aspects is that he wouldn't be learning German, uh, and he would probably very likely just go to a normal small little uh, public school,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, and that's you know
And that's if you go be with your family.
yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Right. Right.
And I think that's the kind of like one of the things that one of the things that is just there, where I think like, wait, this piece doesn't fit, like there are so many things that would fit, that we could make work,
Mm-hmm.
and this one is like, it's just a choice that I have to make on behalf of him, and I don't know what would he choose.
Mm-hmm.
Are there
Yeah.
ways to make it, like, is the life that he would have if we go there, would
Mm-hmm.
it be worth losing that privilege? I mean,
Mm-hmm. And so basically, like if you're, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So it's like if you go, so basically, it looks like you could do that. You could just go live with your family. However, it he would have to get educated in it. Like, what's actually on the table with that? Like, what's the conflict about doing that?
so half of my family lives in the German speaking side of Switzerland,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um, and so it would be really hard for him, and also in general, German is a bit more, let's say, I don't know if useful is the right word, but it's a bit more I don't even know, like, is it spoken more in the world as German? I think so,
Mm-hmm.
than Italian.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect, and like more than about half of Switzerland speaks German, so in a sense, like, that would be a big uh, would be a pity, right? Here he learns German just by going
Yeah.
to daycare and then
Yeah.
to school, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So that would be a big, like, if we move back, it would be a big sacrifice in terms of
Mm-hmm.
something that he would just get for
Mm-hmm.
free in a way. um
Yeah. Yeah.
and all of these in the name of this thing that we've been calling civium, right? of kind of decoupling, moving back away from the city into more rural context, more community based, more nature based. Yeah, so that's the question, right? Is it worth it for him if we make that, right? Like, is that and yeah, I mean, like, uh relatively to the education, you know, I'm still not sure. I'm still, you know, that's still an open question, you know. Do I like public school, or do I want some kind of special uh approach, you know?
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
I personally went to Waldorf uh
Hmm.
school, and but yeah, I mean, for me, like, again, openness, yeah, I'm quite open to
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
options are there, you know. Maybe
Yeah.
meanwhile public school has improved as well, that's what I hear. um
Uh-huh.
but I'm also reading some, like, book by what's it, Ivan Illich, like, he's criticizing
Uh-huh.
schooling in general.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
like, for me, that thing is not very settled.
Right.
And
Right.
if we go to, you know, this little village that barely has enough children to have a public school open, it's going to be, you know, hard to then start a different a school with a different
Yeah.
philosophy. That kind of,
Yeah.
that's my doubt, you know. So there is the
Yeah.
German,
Yeah.
and then there is the actual education, which, you know, paradoxically, like, if you want an alternative education, the city is provides more options, right? And so that's, it's kind of like a way in which this frame of going back away from the city is doesn't fit completely, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know, this is like, these are is one of maybe
Hmm.
two uh, major issues with going
Yeah.
back to my family.
Right. Right. Totally. And so what are the other things that you're talking about? Like what are the other possibilities that are on the table? So there's going back with your family.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was last time or 2 times ago that I
Hmm.
mentioned, like, how I kind of decided to decide that first, you know, like, okay, either I I go
Hmm.
back or I don't, and if I don't, there is, you know, like, still a whole world of
Hmm.
possibilities, right? Like,
Yeah.
so one of the things that I've been considering and that I put on hold was this kind of like looking for 10 families and looking for something together,
Uh-huh.
five, whether it's 5 or 10 families, but you know, like, to kind of create a little community.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess the reason to look for the 10 families is so we can kind of pool capital and skills and
Hmm.
resources.
Yeah.
Like, if we, I guess that if we had the money, we would just, you know, buy something and then look for from there, you know.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Try to look for the ideal place first, and then
Uh-huh.
try to grow from there.
Right.
But now it's like, I would be it would be a bit in that dance of, like, looking for the place and for the people at the same time, and trying to coalesce
Hmm.
something, which is, I see as very risky, as now looking at it from
Yeah.
a bit of a distance now. um,
Yeah.
and then there's always the option to just stay here, which is the
Hmm.
safe option, and it
Hmm.
has a number of, you know, I mean, it's not bad, right? We have
Yeah.
daycare,
Yeah.
kindergarten, and school, like, very close, and
Hmm.
um,
Right.
all of like, most of the problems would be kind of solved. And this goes back to maybe our first or second session, you know, like, the only thing is, like, here, um, we are not embedded in a larger place that we can kind of take care of, that is that doesn't belong to us, or it's like
Yeah.
I see more this fragility that we
Yeah.
have all sensed a bit more
Right.
this year with, you know,
Yeah.
being in a city in general.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
Mm-hmm.
bit it feels like,
Yeah.
I don't know if bind, but difficult choice, let's say.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. And how's it going with talking about this with your wife, and when she looks at the two different things, like how's that conversation like?
Yeah, I think
Is she pretty much kind of turned, is she pretty much like okay with whatever it is that you decide, or is she really strong one way or the other, or
so. I think she would be fine staying here, just as a starting point.
yeah.
And there have been a few, you know, proposals I've made in the past where she reacted like, that not." You know, for example,
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling
Mm-hmm.
would not be something that she wants. And for me, it's like, well, I don't know. I agree with her that I think we both want to work at least part time,
Yeah.
as we are doing right
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
by full homeschooling that's already out of the
Yeah.
table. But then, you know, like, she's not completely close to, you know, like, we were looking at free schools, for example, and all of that. I think she's more like, her statement is, I'm willing to follow you, but you need to be sure about what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if we go to the south of Switzerland,
Right.
where she has to learn a new language, blah blah blah, all of that. Like, that's a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other risks that I didn't mention is, like, obviously, like, me as a web engineer, I will always find a remote job. It's not a problem. But her, like, right now, her job is like, she can do it remotely, and
Mm-hmm.
mostly it's because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
The culture has shifted a bit in that direction, but who
Yeah.
knows, you know, whether at a certain point she wants to change jobs. It might be very difficult to find something that's almost fully remote, um,
Yeah.
in you know, in her field. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
other big question about moving.
Yeah.
um and uh and so again, like, she doesn't want to go somewhere and maybe in a year or two I change my mind, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of thing she would like to avoid. And she's very, you know, like, again, we mentioned it a couple of times, you know, like, practical, down to earth, and very good at bringing up, and what about this, you know. And these are
Mm-hmm.
the things that we are talking about now, are some of
Yeah.
the things she mentioned, actually, you know, in
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah,
Totally.
it's like, okay, looks nice, looks, you know, but, and then how do we solve this specific issue? And it's like,
Yeah. Right. Right.
so
Right. Yeah. Totally. Totally. And so, where are you at?
hmm?
What? So where are you at with it? What do you think you want to do?
uh, hmm, I don't know.
Like, what happens when I just ask you that?
It feels like you asked me to, you know,
Hmm.
do 100 push-ups, you know, and I'm like, I haven't trained in 10 years. It's like, what?
Right. Totally. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Is
like
there any? Is there just really quick? Is there actually any external time pressure on any of this? Like,
external.
do you have to decide before school starts or something like that? Is there anything? Are there any like external time
Hmm.
strengths?
I guess that would be a good one, like schools or one of these transitions, because right now, okay, there are a couple of natural transitions that would happen, right? So daycare ends, kindergarten starts,
Yeah.
kindergarten and school starts, right? These transitions
Yeah.
would be good to kind of like, make the choice coincide, or
Hmm.
not make it be longer than that.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect.
Hmm.
And then there is maybe a bit the self-imposed uh thing that, like, there are still these other projects that I put on hold, right? And so, for example,
Hmm.
there is this friend of mine that we started having the regular talks, and after the second one, I said, "Wait, let's let's take a break."
Hmm. Right.
So I guess
Right.
he's waiting for me to kind of like come back to him and
Hmm.
say, "Yeah, I decided I'm going." Like, I think, yeah, we have a meeting scheduled after Christmas, right? Because Christmas is when I
Right.
go
Right.
to my family, and we have some conversations. At least that's what I'm expect.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I guess probably
Yeah.
a friend of mine would probably expect to be able to either continue planning, make looking for locations and
Yeah.
etc. And so, yeah, there is maybe that expectation, like that I
Hmm.
will have made a choice by then.
Right. Right.
And yeah, I don't know,
Hmm.
maybe the world collapses, and that might be also
Yes.
some external time
Right.
pressure.
Right. Now, if we just look at it from this standpoint, let's just say like that nothing changes, right? That you just make a decision to just stay where you are,
Mm.
and then we just move time forward, right? A year, 2 years, 5 years. Like let's just say if like things basically stay the same, right? Or or keep or keep moving in the direction that they're moving from where you are, right? In terms of your work, in terms of all your projects, right? In terms of your son, where you live, your wife's career. Like if that just unfolds, given the current structure, like where are you? Like tell me a little bit about the story of what's what's relatively predictable about that. Like what's the story that unfolds
Hmm.
from that life? What do you see?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I mentioned, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the you my son would go to daycare, and a couple
Mm-hmm.
more years, and then to kindergarten, and then, I mean, the school would be open, right? Where he could go to local public school, or we could send him to some private
Mm-hmm.
schools that are here around here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I guess I would keep on working on the community garden here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, get to know more people, be a bit more involved in the community
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Do you mean like literally? There's a community garden. Do you mean literally a garden with
it's yeah,
plants
it is.
and?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Right,
It's
right.
15 people.
Yeah,
uh, the how do you call it? The terrain at least
right.
belongs to the city. It's kind of, uh,
Yeah,
but we can, for the time being, we can just use it and
right, right.
plant things, and um
Mm-hmm.
and then, yeah, I would just keep working for
Mm-hmm.
the company that I'm working for.
Mm-hmm.
My wife would be, I don't know, it
Mm-hmm.
the way I'm this, like the way it shows up to me is
Yeah, how does it
as
show up?
uh like good and kind of dull and gray at the same time, kind of
Yeah,
like, yeah, that,
yeah.
like most of the problems we've been talking about would already be solved,
Mm-hmm.
there
Mm-hmm.
will be, and
Yeah.
yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
there would be no, you know I don't know if that's part of the question, right? Like what would you be giving up uh
Right.
by staying?
What relationships would deepen or develop, or what like what connections, right, would that are already there would take hold and grow roots
Mm.
and blossom in something that you wanted.
I assume, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the situation, going around with masks and stuff
Mm-hmm.
um, makes it harder, or more awkward. But like people from the garden, um, I guess we would spend more time working, trying
Yeah.
to kind of meet in these awkward
Right.
ways that we meet today.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe other parents from the daycare, from the little,
Mm-hmm.
from the area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, then there would be the whole online stuff that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, can go on in any place.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so that,
Right.
yeah, the thing that I
And
guess
just
something
one.
that sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. The question, maybe this is the other question is, and the self that you are, right, given what your current life, right, is, the self that your current life supports, right, as you continue going through that, tell me about that self. Tell me about this one. What is it that develops in you? What is it that doesn't develop in you? What is it that deepens?
Hmm. It's, if I, it's interesting, right? Because now I'm within the frame of, I
Mm-hmm.
we're doing the coaching so that I can make this big choice, so that I can
Mm-hmm.
participate in game B. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now like if I now assume that I'm staying here,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then I don't know exactly how I would be participating in game B.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
like in the sense that, okay, now there is a bit this presupposition that you
Mm-hmm.
sooner or later you need to be on a piece of land. I don't know. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
part of it, and
Right.
also maybe like
Yeah.
a community that is long term, or poof,
Mm-hmm.
uh, community that is a bit more tight knit, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
I mean, I'm wondering to what degree, probably maybe I don't really know what I mean by this, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a part of me says that it is possible to do it here, and another part says it's not
Mm-hmm.
possible to do it here.
Yeah.
Um, so that's weird.
Right.
um,
Right.
the question is, yeah, like,
Mm-hmm.
hmm, what is it really about? Is it about the people?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's about, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it's like, okay, here what I could do is kind of train the community muscle, right? Like I could
Mm-hmm.
become more involved, etc., etc. Form relationships, bonds, etc., and so on.
Yeah.
There would always be this sense that I'm not staying here forever, and these other people might leave as well, and
Mm-hmm.
like there is no,
Only binding,
yeah.
right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I
What's
don't
it
know
like
to
just
what
to see
degree one
that?
can. It's like there is this
Yeah,
question, to what degree can one build roots in a
yeah,
place that you don't own?
yeah,
And it's a
yeah.
good question because I think that to a degree this game be thinking would lead towards actually not really a private ownership of land and those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. I think it would go more towards these commons oriented structures and so on. But
Mm-hmm.
and but which would be like that too would be different from just renting a place. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's maybe the big question. There is an
Mm-hmm.
ambivalence towards like investing in this place,
Mm-hmm. Right.
in the place where I am, because I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
the roots. And the question is like, can the
Right.
roots
The
grow?
roots. Right.
Like is this
Yeah.
there's maybe a paradox, like maybe I feel that I cannot grow roots because I haven't done it, you know.
Yeah. But you want to. You
I
want roots.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
You want
Yeah,
roots.
there
So
was
let's just hang out there for a second. Like,
yeah,
so you want roots.
yes.
Right. Yeah, totally. Because like you know that you want roots, right? Because roots afford with roots what?
It's like it may, yeah, you can really invest in place. You can, or you can create like a synergy between you and the place that you're in.
Yeah,
uh,
right.
like a deeper relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in a sense, roots, like as a metaphor, they are that relationship.
Hmm. Right.
um,
Yeah,
so it's more like I want to know where, I want to know the place where in which I can like
yeah,
build those roots, because
right.
I guess like to be uprooted, to have to move
Yeah,
is painful. Like, and then it kind of like
yeah,
breaks all these.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Like if
Totally.
now, so the thing is like I want to build relationships
Hmm.
that with place and with people that
Connection's a little funny. Mm.
that
You
can you
froze
hear me
for
at
a while.
least?
No, you froze for a while.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm gonna move my phone a bit.
Yeah,
Is it better?
that's better. Yeah. Let's see if it takes root.
Hmm.
Right. So with roots, So it's one of the things what I'm hearing is like contextually, right? One of the ways that the current situation where you're at, like why you're thinking about leaving is because it's like, because you don't own the place, right? You're not inclined to take the risks that afford the kind of relationships that those relationships would come with, right?
Yeah.
Like all the different things, you wouldn't probably feel stable enough in order to reach out and start to build. And so there's a sense of rootlessness where you're
Yeah.
at, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. And I feel like in my life, I never had those roots. It's like something that I'm not really familiar with in a way.
Yeah. So
Because
pause right there. Pause right there. Hang on. Pause right there. So like, okay. So I just want to kind of be with that for a moment. So what I'm really clear on, right, is I want roots. And one thing I haven't ever really had are roots,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
I just want to kind of just, it's interesting. This thing about roots is there's something about that where I feel something starts to inside of me with you. I'm noticing and just being with you starts to, um, I feel some kind of grip, something's present that isn't ambiguous.
mm,
And I think whatever it is about roots is where I can really feel that.
mhm, yeah,
And it makes a lot of sense because one of the places that's been like a kind of a chronic source of pain for you in your life has been this thing about making choices, right? And like it would make sense that what would make that so painful, because if I don't have roots like that go like bind me to a place, by what criteria do I know what
mhm,
to choose based on what, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
everything's up for grabs no matter what choice that I make, right?
yes,
Because there's nothing at stake in the matter, right?
mm, yeah,
Yeah. So on some level, the choice that you're wanting to make around where you live, right, is really what you're wanting are roots,
mhm,
right? And what you're finding out is that like the choice that you're making, um, in some senses, is starting to respond to the, the painfulness of making choices, of what makes it painful, right? So this is really, I mean, I think as I kind of say that, I notice myself like having even more respect for how meaningful this is, right? On multiple dimensions, I
mm,
think being you.
yeah,
Yeah. And there's also a sense in which you know that you want that, but in some strange way, you probably don't even know how exactly you know that you want that because it's not like you've had it,
yeah, exactly.
right?
Well, would it even feel like to have roots?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let me ask you something about what has it felt like not to have them?
There's something about infinite possibility and
Mm,
mania, like a sense like, oh, possibility everywhere, and then
no
maybe a lack.
necessity.
Hmm?
Yeah, all possibility with no necessity.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
and also, yeah, and a lack of. But I don't know if it's exactly. Maybe that's more general. My personality, like, yeah, like a lack of things that become then concrete enough that. Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking at right now is like the tendency in my life to, work to get to things. Like, okay, web engineering degree and these kinds of things, and then like, okay, now it's here, and but then not build, like use it as a solid foundation either, like say, okay, but maybe
Right.
I'm gonna be a coach in the future, maybe I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
um always. And the same was with the coaching, like took me 1 year and a half, part-time, going to this coaching school. And then my son came, and I just, you know that was it. I did my exam, and
Yeah.
I've never coached
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are ways in which all these things flow into, the,
Yeah.
how I am, and the way, the affordances that I
Right.
have, and all of that. But
Right.
it's definitely not. Yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm rooted in something. It feels like
Yeah.
I'm adrift, afloat, or kind of.
That's 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 what we're doing here. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Just kind of seeing that, if that is the case. I mean, that's what seems like it's shining to me.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, if we look at,
How would you put it?
like, let's say that all these game B, etc., these people, and I'm sorry about the noises, but we are underground here.
Mhm.
It's we're in my basement. So,
I'm not hearing any noises.
all right, there are
Yeah.
some tubes up there, like with some water
Okay.
going through it, that I feel here.
Okay.
So,
Mhm.
that the all this game B and so on, like, maybe it's an attempt to find a worldview that is more rooted, like that, again, like,
Yeah.
yeah. And maybe
Yeah.
even, I don't know if, another metaphor is like to be embedded, embeddedness
Mhm.
is, which, like, I feel like I'm somehow the opposite of embedded in things.
Yeah.
Obviously, now having a family, etc., like that,
Yeah.
does a bit of that.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Well, this is it creates. I mean, if you want to learn about necessity,
Mhm.
like have a
Yeah.
kid, right?
Yes. It's just, again, like, I think this, there are things going on at multiple levels.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there is my personal story, biography, and so on,
Yeah.
and then there is this narrative about civilizational collapse
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
I've been immersed in now for a couple
Right.
of years,
Right.
and the mainstream world kind of echoing that.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so it's finding more resonance as time goes on,
Right.
and kind of both of them seem to, like, my life and that sphere, are also resonating with each other, with this theme of, like, find your roots, find, like, embed yourself in something that can
Yeah.
survive the flood, like
Yeah.
there is something about the Noah's
No,
Ark,
totally. That's what you're doing. Right.
Yeah, there's definitely something about that, like,
Yeah.
let's say that the archetype of, people around you are like sleepwalking, and you're like, the flood is coming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
but there is also
Yeah.
something else, like, now people around me, and thinking about people at work and so on.
Mm-hmm.
These people have roots, I mean, not everyone. I don't know about the personal
Mm-hmm.
lives of, but these people, like, they are embedded way more than I am, like, in the sense that they they really celebrate and participate in their culture, the place where they come from, and um in a way, I'm one of the few that doesn't live really like close to where they came from.
Mm. Mm. You mean at your job where you work? You're talking about the people that you work with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like what I was kind of noticing is this, again, ambivalence between, on one hand, I don't see them worrying too much about, civilizational collapse and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and a part of me says, what fools. and
Yeah. Yeah.
and on the other hand, these
Mm-hmm.
people they already have more roots and are more embedded in, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, they already live
Mm-hmm.
closer to, I don't know, has been my
Yeah.
experience of these people, that they are very, like, embedded in their culture, and very,
Yeah.
um, the opposite of shamanic. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say it.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Totally.
like,
Totally.
like this idea of the shaman that go, like, intermediates between cultures and stuff. I
Right.
guess I feel more that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And in some sense, the shaman has been like what I'm hearing you say is like the shaman's gone out there at the edges,
Hmm.
right? And he's basically kind of come back and said, all right, you got to find roots,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
It's a reluctant shaman.
Right? Yeah, right,
uh,
right.
it's interesting. It's like slowly there is like the opening of the possibility of not doing it, of not of not looking for roots.
Mm, 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 mm.
Interesting.
Right.
Like, hmm, interesting.
Yeah,
That's a
what's
shift.
interesting?
Yeah, there has been
Yeah,
quite a bit, an unexpected, a bit ironic shift right now.
yeah.
Of like, okay, what if, like, to hell with all that,
Mhm,
to hell with all the root building, and I focused
mm.
more on being like, uh, a surfer,
Right, right.
like just like to say, to kind of consciously say, okay, if the collapse comes, we're gonna be navigating, we're gonna be the ones
Right,
running, and killing the zombies.
right, right.
Like, just, and maybe we're gonna be the ones, like, gathering people, because
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of the uncertainty, because we have been training that, consciously choosing not
Yes,
to be
totally,
rooted.
totally. Yes,
Something like that,
right.
about
Mm.
saying, actually, maybe let's be meta rooted. Something like
Right,
that.
right, right.
uh,
Totally.
let's be Gandalf, going from one place to the next,
Mm-hmm.
and showing up in the at the right time, in the right place, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
It's funny.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Huh. What does that mean, in real life? I think
What does that
something that
mean?
it means is really not making these big choices, uh, and instead, I think it's an interesting turn. And I still, I'm hesitating about, like, just going there, but it's a bit like a couple of sessions ago where we kind of ended like, what if we just, decided to be as open as possible, like, and just navigate the openness,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, totally.
instead of trying to pin something down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm conflicted about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a sense, the thing that I was afraid of showing at the beginning of the session,
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, I keep going back and forth, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the suddenly present is the option to just actually choosing that as a path, to
Right.
say, actually, I'm
Right.
going to be the one whose life
Yeah.
purpose is to doubt
Right.
and to evaluate options.
Totally. Which is a kind of root. I mean, that's really kind of the same on some level. That's to do that fully, in some senses, to root yourself
Yeah, it's
in
weird.
that.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
it's something tells me that's somehow what you have chosen.
Nope.
Nope.
No. Nope. Nope.
Hmm.
Nope. No, I'm like, in some sense, like I've like, yeah, being really rooted, right,
Hmm.
in where I'm at and in my relationship and in my marriage and like, the choices that we're making and as deliberate is that we're being, right? There is this kind of way in which there is a sense for me in my experience as that happens, which there's, my own history has a lot of conflict in it, right? So the sense of being rooted, what that always looked like to me was just like a bunch of lies, right? People that look like that they were rooted were kind of like, it just all looked like bullshit to me at one
Hmm.
at one point. And like, I would say now I'm realizing, no, that's actually kind of the version I grew up in, right? But that's not necessarily the essence of it. So there's a kind of a way where I'm noticing that these very simple, deep things like being rooted is in some way is having me um, like expand in these other ways, right?
Hmm.
That are directly proportionate to the degree that I'm like really kind of grounded in
Hmm.
something that's enduring, right? And simple and not easy, right?
Hmm.
But not like flashy or fantastic. It's like
Hmm.
it's I feel both of those happening in surprising ways, right? So
Hmm.
like this sense of being rooted for me is something that I don't even think I had a relationship with even wanting. I couldn't even like, it took me a long time to be able to perceive the signals from my being
Hmm.
that were actually wanted a sense of continuity, right? A sense of um, depth of commitment, if you will,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, like that's
Hmm.
I misread all those signals for a long time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the rootedness is what kind of affords you showing up with this, like, this wide openness and
Yeah, in the
curiosity.
way that you see it now, I think that what you're seeing now it is,
Hmm.
right, in a big way. I'm in a kind of a like, I went through a whole period where I just kind of like pretty much lost and let go of everything
Hmm.
about, I don't know, what like two, was it 2 years ago? Say about 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and like, and then have kind of, you could say, rebuilt things from clearing all that out, right?
Mm.
And kind of built things more with my eyes a lot more open to more of myself. Yeah.
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 Journeys of people.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's really kind of some in the sense of like, Jung talked a lot about this, where he would say what enlightens you, right, is your inferior functions, right?
Mm.
You know, like that's the whole notion of a midlife crisis, which is that's he coined that term.
Mm.
And basically what he said is like, there's, is he distinguished in like introvert, extrovert, right? Like I think it's intuitive, sensate, all these, Myers-Briggs, that's all based kind of in Jung.
Mm-hmm.
And what he would say is that you're kind of, in some sense, you're born in the first half of your life, you have like your superior functions, like you're an extrovert and a thinker and blah, 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 blah. And then
Mm-hmm.
your inferior functions are in the subconscious. And he says, right around midlife, for whatever reason, your psyche does a flip flop where all of a sudden you've built a life for somebody who's an extrovert. And then all of a sudden you start craving and wanting introverted activities. Yet your whole life is kind of designed to be an extrovert, right? So you end up having these crises, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he said that it's like really in the spirit of this, I really kind of, it's definitely been true for me, right? It's those things that I'm not necessarily that good at or inclined towards, right? That like are the things that have been brought me the most kind of cohesiveness and solaceness inside, right? So like, things like raising a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like having savings, doing these kinds of relatively conservative kinds of things, right? I'll never have the proclivity or the inclination to just dive into those things, but like grappling with those and really taking them on has afforded everything else in me, right?
Mm-hmm.
In such a big degree,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I can hear the sense of like when you talk about like desiring roots, I really get it.
Mm-hmm.
I really get it. I think it's the right signal to listen to. In some sense, I think what you're trying to do right now is like go, okay, well, what does that actually mean for you? Like,
Yeah.
that's the context, the content of how do you express that, right? How do you develop that in your life, right? Is really kind of the choices that you're making, like that. Those are the decisions that you're looking at, but the context of what you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think has already been decided.
What do you mean already been decided?
Well, whatever it is, that sense of being rooted,
Mm-hmm.
like you want to be the context, which is clear, is you want to be more rooted, right, in your life because of everything that it affords. That I think that choice, the choice to have that or to move towards that seems like that's already been decided. In fact, this conversation is inside of that decision, right?
It's interesting. I mean, interesting. I keep, I'm catching myself because I say that quite often.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Um, I have a sense of how that rock has been like moved a little bit during the conversation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Hmm.
I'm kind of, it's like all of it like shifted, and I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
where is up, where is down. Like if I feel maybe
Right.
even less rooted, not even in my desire to be rooted.
Right. Right. Totally. Yeah. Check it out. Bring some language to it. Like feel into like what is that that thing that you feel, that you sense? What are you noticing?
There's a bit of a trickster element, like kind of like you can look at it upside down, or you can, and each of, it's not clear which perspective is the right one. Like there is this kind of ambivalence. So in a way, it could be that the part of me that doesn't like to make choices is happy about the perspective of not having to ever make choices again.
Right, totally.
Or there is like the part of me that is able to navigate uncertainty, etc., has kind of shown up and revealed its kind of deeper essence, the essence that is deeper than the need of having roots. It's like, okay, like there are two ways of interpreting what's going on right now. And then there is a bit of a delight in that.
Let's let the delight happen, the energy of the delight happen.
So it's like there is a warm opening and inviting sense of the possibility of embracing the unrootedness. Kind of consciously. And again, like there is this metaphor of navigation that keeps kind of showing itself. And then beyond that, maybe like a sense of there being a dialectic between the rootedness and unrootedness, you know, like an ongoing back and forth, and like I think dialectic. What Vervaeke talks about, you know, the opponent processes that differentiate over time and kind of like growing to their own specialization, something like that. And how, in a way, I think this analog, like it's a bit analogous to what you were talking about when you were talking about yourself, like this, how one affords the other. It's like, okay, in order to be able to make a good choice, I need to allow myself to flow freely as possible, you know, because only then will I have kind of had a sense of like, okay, this is the choice that I'm making, you know, because if I start with this narrow frame, it's like that this is the choice, like kind of like then I already made a choice by narrowing the frame in a way. And then there is the other aspect, which is more painful to me, of like, okay, then once you made the choice, that is the platform or the frame through which I I feel like I'm coming a bit full circle, you know, like on the frustration of of how long it takes for me to make these choices.
So when do you want to make this choice by?
When?
Yeah. I have a feeling this is one of the things I'm going to suggest is because this will be you have to really kind of tend to the ecology of your life with this one, right? Is have a conversation with your wife and say, all right, like whether or not we choose to be here where we're at, whether or not we choose to move into property with 10 or go in that direction, whether or not we go over with our family. Let's by when do we want to be clear on that? And then because I have a feeling putting a time horizon on this will create some constraints that'll allow your creativity to start to dig in. Because otherwise, I think you are a little bit in danger of kind of like your particular way of deceiving yourself, right? Around like not moving forward, right? I think you probably want to bring some time constraints around this to kind of keep yourself in check and really have you kind of look at what you really want to do here with this. Yeah. But I think that probably needs to that choice needs to probably come from inside of yourself and inside of your wife, and you guys to meet around that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. So I think when you looked at like, well, if things are just right now, if they just stayed the same and just progressed on their trajectory right now, if nothing changed, when you said as well, it seems a little dull. Like that's not good. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
So what happens in your heart and your being when you just sit with that suggestion?
Well, it feels a bit uncomfortable, but I think it's needed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I will have that conversation.
Right on. Beautiful. Yeah, my friend.
Thank you as usual.
Absolutely.
And I guess we see each other not next week.
Yeah.
Not for Christmas.
Yes,
Christmas
absolutely.
Eve.
Merry Christmas, my friend.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you too. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.